Okay. Hi, good evening, friends of Liberty, and those that watch this later. My name is Leonard Ogunwaide. I lead the strategic effort at Face of Liberty International in Nigeria, and I have on the call with me today to discuss a very salient topic in the libertarian world, and that is minimum wage and price ceiling, its effects, and the solution to the effects that it has in Africa. I have with me today on the panel LM Rodney from Uganda. LM, can you say hi to our viewers?
Hi to everyone else there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellen, for being with us today. We have Dennis Bua from Kampala in Uganda. Dennis, can you say hi to our viewers?
Hi, people. Happy to be part of this. My name is Dennis Bua Oscar.
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis, for being with us today. And we have the one and only anarcho capitalist of Entebbe, Uganda, Mr. Wazige Joram. Joram, can you say hi to our viewers? Mr. Joram, you are muted.
Sorry for that. Good evening and good afternoon, some parts of the world, and good morning. I'm Joram Mwesige. I work with Action for Liberty and Economic Development. I work as administrative officer. I'm happy to be part of this discussion. Back to
Awesome.
you, Liam.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joram. Thank you, LM. Thank you, Dennis, for being here with us today. So, on to the discussion. Minimum wage, price ceiling. Let's first deal with minimum wage. LM, I'm coming to you first. What do you think price minimum wage means?
Yes, thank you very much, Leonard, on this thing. It's simply a set price by the government entity that is set to predominantly help the most vulnerable sector in the society in terms of the workers, because we realize that within the working class there are those who are lowly paid. So there's need to set something for them so that they are not exploited. That's all I can say about minimum wage. You muted yourself.
It happens sometimes. So you're saying that it's meant for the less vulnerable people who are kind of not having the financial capacity, and in order for them to have one or two things get done. Is that what you say?
Yes, what I'm trying to say is that within the society, people, it is a society. The society is made up of classes. So there are those, the poor, the rich, and those who are the lowest level of the social class. So I'm talking of the vulnerable workers and those who don't have the purchasing power to purchase their basic needs and all other social amenities. Those are the people whom this minimum wage is meant to target.
Okay. So Dennis, let me come to you. Let me come to you now. Do you think minimum wage set by the government, according to what it says, is actually useful for the economy? If it's not, who suffers most? The government or the people that the minimum wage is supposed to be useful for?
Um, thank you, Leon. Thank you, Rodney, for the wonderful definition of minimum wage. So apparently, I'll give my thought on this. I think that I have a thought that minimum wage to be set, there's certain criteria or there's certain things that have to be really put to check, or there's certain research that has to be made. A government cannot just come up over the blue and set a minimum wage without making research about the economy, without making research about what the minimum wage is supposed to achieve, and then what they intend for their people. Putting it in effect that and putting it to clarity that minimum wage is, of course, supposed to help people elevate their statuses, economic statuses. So I think it is something that will affect both ends in both a positive and negative way. One, it will affect the population of the people in a way that if minimum wage is set, if minimum wage is set in a way that it is not considerate of people who are peanut employees, it will of course affect them so much, because if you set a minimum wage for someone who is working if you set a minimum wage, or someone is working for daily income, or someone is working to earn daily, it's something that may not be of better, something that may not be of better advantage to them. And if you set minimum wage for example, uh, people who are earning, people who are working in industries, or people who are earning some better amount of money in different companies or something like that, I mean, it is something that will affect uh, both parties, uh, both ways, because it has an element to do with research. It has an element to do with understanding the effect on the economy. It has an element to do with result. It is more of result. If it is more of having an impact to people's lives, and then having an impact to their well-being. So it I'll not give it I'll give it a double 50-50. It affects both in a 50-50 way.
Now, let me stop you there. Thank you very much, Dennis. You
Yeah.
said it's effect in a 50-50 thing. So, Joram, are you with us? I can see your video is off. If you're with us, I don't know. Okay, fine. You're with us. Um, the component of wage has about 6 different things. It includes your basic pay, your annual bonuses, your tips, the in-kind benefits, productivity and performance pay, allowance and premium for non-standard work hour or even dangerous works. When the government is setting the minimum wage, do you think, in your own opinion, the minimum wage should apply to the workers' total earning, or should it apply only to some of these components that I've mentioned? Joram.
Thank you very much. First of all, I disagree with minimum wage totally. Minimum wage is a nonsense. It's not necessary. In other words, it is a detriment in work. I mean, in area of work and in the sector, in the economy in particular. I mean, so minimum wage should not be applied in anywhere in the tenure of someone's employment, because it has very, very big negative impacts. For example, if we are to evaluate what it brings on the table when it is applied, because in most cases it is not, those who apply it, it is not based on scientific, research. It is not based on proper research, and the policymakers who does that are in most cases political. For example, if the minimum wage is applied today, it will not be evaluated tomorrow, because the dynamics, for example, today there is inflation. If inflation happened to occur and the minimum wage has taken place, policy has taken place, it will not be revised. And if it is happen, we shall see every day the government coming up to revise the minimum wage, because it is such a thing that happens in a fragile economy. So based on that, that is that. And if we are to look at the employment side, it really brings in unemployment situation. It raises unemployment, because when a wage is set and it is higher than the profits of a certain company, the company will come up with a policy of putting off some worker, laying off some workers. Some worker will be laid off for a company to maintain its operation because it will not manage the expense bill, the wage bill, and all that. The other thing that may come up will be poor quality products at the market. The company will start duplicating the products so that it can get its what profit, because all the companies are after profit. So when the minimum wage are slapped on the companies, they'll find a way how they raise their profits. The other one is, apart from the quality, of course, they will reduce on the quantity, and they will, of course, raise the prices. The prices will soar, and the people, we shall see inflation of price product. I mean, the prices of product rising. So those are, and others. Those are some of the big effects, negative effects caused by whatever minimum wage. Of course, there are others which are political. The government try to capture and control companies, especially if you look at Africa. The government can determine laws based on who support the government or not. So when the policies, the laws are very many, in most cases, the government play using the laws to control the economy and the people who support it or not. So it is not
So
good for the government.
what you are saying now, Joram, is that minimum wage is bad in its entirety. Yes or no?
The minimum wage. Do you know what determines minimum wage is? One, value, incentives. The companies know who is supposed to be paid highly, because if I know LM is a good worker in my company, I will not accept to lose LM. I'll find a way how to maintain LM, because LM training, bringing another new LM and training him is more costly than maintaining LM at the workplace. So I don't see much advantages. The advantages are there, but are very minimal. They are only about maybe politicians and the workers. Of course, I told you, a worker who agitates for minimum wage is agitating for unemployment. He'll be laid off from work. So you cannot agitate for something which will make you be laid off from work. So to my understanding, we don't want to see duplicated goods. We don't want to see unemployment and increased government control. I don't want to see that one.
Okay. Thank you. So, LM, Joram says in his presentation that minimum wage has a very little advantage. It doesn't say it does not have advantage at all, but it has a very little advantage. In your own opinion, according to research by libertarian authors and the teachers, they made mention that they make a compelling case, especially in a book by Williams in The State Against Black in 1982. They made a statement there that minimum wage law results in greater unemployment among low-skilled laborers. What do you think about that? Is that true? And if it's true, why is it like that, even in Africa?
Thank you very much, Leonard. Still jumping onto that, it would require me to first establish my stance on what Joram has put across. I believe that yes, he has made mention of all the other fears that are associated with minimum wage. But what I should remind Joram about this is that the discussion is no longer about minimum wage, it's about high minimum wage across the countries in my research that I've been making. So it's not about the minimum wage. The minimum wage is a setting ground for any economy, But much as we know that at one point it leads to unemployment, the unemployment hasn't been, the unemployment that it brings about is because of the high it's because of the high minimum wage, not because of the minimum wage. And as some other countries in Africa here, we've not yet set the minimum wage because most of the investors in our countries are foreign investors, and we don't want to give them that hardship as they enjoy their their stay in the country or the investments altogether. But still the same, we can consider the efficiency wage theories that says that if with the increase of with the payments of the workers tend to become more productive. At the same time, also it increases on their purchasing powers. Remember one thing: as long as the employees are in position to purchase what they produce, then that means the company itself has the consumers even within itself, not from outside alone. How would it be if at all I make sugar and my employees are paid less than the money that is required to buy a kilogram of sugar? It would make no sense. So the literal meaning about minimum wage is to set a standard, not to destroy the economies or to destroy the companies, but also to consider the fact that the companies have to understand the human relations aspects of managing the company itself. Because administratively, you realize that there are some people who won't feel the need to continue working because they don't have what is required to purchase what they're supposed to purchase in the market. They can't afford rent, they can't afford food. All that they do is to eat the same food from Monday to Sunday. So the minimum wage is set on the basis of understanding what can make the person live in such economy that is too diverse. Because the market itself, we are all vulnerable to the market, but we are not too much vulnerable to the market like the rich people. The rich people are so resilient in the fact that even the taxes that are imposed on them will still come back to the consumer, not the workers. So the workers are too vulnerable to this. So the minimum wage is not set out of fraud common sense. Let me tell you the truth is that the minimum wage is a public policy. And the public policy is not set out of just fraud common sense. People do research. Doesn't mean that when you talk about government doesn't have researchers. People do research. There are policy analysts, the policy makers, researchers, and whatever. So they come up with ideals, theories to define how the society has to operate and how the disadvantaged can be helped out. We know the truth that there are some people who didn't go to school, those who didn't, those who are vulnerable, like even maybe the disabled people, who are given, who might, who the minimum wage can easily affect, because at one point the workers, or like the employees, or I mean the employers themselves, will literally now start employing only skilled labor, and that will leave out those who are unskilled. We know those effects. But talk about the utilitarian theorists, they will say that what are the benefits over the cost? So if at all we're saying that the benefits are more than the cost, then we can still look for a way of equalizing the
Okay,
costs
now
themselves.
let me stop you there. You were
Yes.
mentioning that you categorically understand that low skill workers are being affected by the minimum wage. So Dennis,
Yes.
let me come to you now. How do you think as libertarians we could solve this problem of not actually marginalizing the low skill worker? We know all of us cannot have the same skills. All of us cannot learn higher skills. Some are, their health is not enough for them. Their situation is not enough for them to go out and learn higher skills. Some their brain cannot actually pick it. So LM, I'm coming back to you. Let me come to Dennis first. Dennis, what do you think we can do to help those vulnerable ones? Because remember, as libertarians, our main objective is to use our creativity in order to help other humans. So what do you think we can do right now or in the near future in order to help these low skilled laborers who are being turned off, sent out of work because of minimum wage?
Uh, uh, Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Joram and Gilem. So I think from the onset, we should realize that we are all born different. We all have different abilities. We all have different capabilities. So you take it straight from school to work. We are all different. We've been getting very different grades right from school. Then to work, we have different capacities. We have different capability. Uh, different capability arenas. And so it is important to appreciate that we are born different and we have different thinking capacities and abilities. So I think, as libertarians, I think the best thing to do is to advocate for a more free economy. I mean, a more free economy and a more free space where people are allowed to exercise their abilities, and then you can be paid. I mean, there are countries that are paid. There are people that in countries that are paid per hour. There are people that are paid per output. So minimum wage, I think I do not want to say it is bad. Joram is an anarchist. I think that's why he's saying it's totally bad and things like that. But I want to think that we can really advocate for having a more free economy and having people express their abilities and express their express their passion and express what they can do at their workplaces in order to have better and more pay. So minimum wage, I won't say it's bad, but we cannot set it so low or we cannot set it so high, but we can have an element of freedom in it. We can have a free element in it that allows people to express what they truly can express in order to attain more. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dennis. So I want to bring out this thing to the panelists. Do you think setting different minimum wages in different sector of the economy would help than setting a centralized minimum wage? Joram, what do you say? You are muted, Joram.
Sorry, that's why I tried to contest. It's not about minimum wage. It's actually about the value someone brings in the market. It's about the value. Free market has its own way how it rewards people. But we need to ask ourselves, who determines that minimum wage? Who determines it? The principle is everyone comes in the market, bring his value freely, without oppression from anyone, agree, exchange with other people, create value, and that value is bought by someone. If I move today and go to seek for a job from LM or from Dennis, I go there willingly, without forcing. And I should not bring in a third party, force my employer to determine how much wage I should get from him. It is the market. There is that invisible hand that tends to bring these workers and employer together, create value amongst themselves, between themselves, I mean, and then they are rewarded. And if I'm not actually satisfied with what I'm paid at workplace, I will move away. The other time I was saying, sometimes they weigh value. Why do people who are paid lower wages still working in certain places? One, the economy may not be working very well. I may move and then don't get a job. That is one. Then I may move and may work. The other issue, I may move and I don't. I may move and leave the company where I'm working, and when I go elsewhere, I find I'm paid more lesser than what I'm earning here. So it is always some people try.
Let me stop you there. What you are trying to portray is called utopia. Even Milton Friedman says we are trying as much as possible to reach utopia. We've not. Where a free market really runs the market. The invisible hand of the market runs the market, price control and every other thing. But we're not there yet. So LM, let me come back to you. Do you think setting different minimum wage in different sectors? Let's take Uganda, for example. You are in Uganda. I learned that the teachers get paid differently. If you're an art teacher, you have your own price. If you are a science teacher, you have your own price, you get paid. Do you think setting different minimum wage in different sector of human development can actually help? But and if it does help, what would be the disadvantage of such?
Yes, I would want to first answer you on that by being precise. It is true it has to operate differently because these sectors are all okay. This all these sectors have different profit margins, and them having different profit margins, it makes them vulnerable to a centralized or like a one size fits all minimum wage. So there's need to differentiate because in some aspect, let me give an example of agriculture. Agriculture might seem to have the highest number of people working in it, but it has less income, or maybe let me say like people get paid less in agriculture, much as in the Ugandan perspective. But again, in the industries themselves, you realize that the payments might be different or even higher. And more so in the mechanical industries where they are dealing with machines, making machines. So it has to apply differently, first. And second, talking about what Dennis said, that there's need for freedom, just as Joram is also trying to put across freedom, freedom, freedom. Just as Roselle one time stated that man is born free but always in chains. So the freedom itself has to base on the fact that also the low income earners have the freedom, have the power to also decide for their own. Do they have the money that can, you know, do they have the choices? If I told you I'm earning the money that makes me just deal with my needs, not my wants, then that means I don't have a choice. I don't have freedom. You understand, Joram? So what I'm trying to say is that are the low income earners having choices also when they're purchasing things, or they're always limited by their needs? Things that deal with the physiological needs according to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the freedom itself doesn't have to be with the employers only. It also has to be with the employees, the low income. Let us say one thing here. The minimum wage income, I mean, the minimum wage is not to affect the high workers. I mean, high paid workers. It is just to give a base, leveraging the ground for those who don't have the skills, those who have the skills but are still on probation, or they're still gaining the experience. So it's not to affect those who are highly paid. It's just to create a ground for those who are vulnerable, those who might wish to work, but the conditions that they are into or that they are in at that point doesn't give them the chance to develop. Because let us say one thing, you're already earning a price, I mean, an income of like 75,000, and yet you're sleeping in a house that is 50,000, and yet you're supposed to eat every day. Do you have the freedom of deciding what to eat? You might always eat your commando because it's the need now. So the minimum wage is to be set to consider the fact that human beings are human beings, are not robots. So on also basing on that aspect, also the minimum wage also has to create a ground for those who want to develop. Like, let me give an example. Dennis, you're working in this organization very well, and you've been working there. You've been being paid according to the Keynesian theories, who say that pay him according to what he provides. I mean, like according to his productivity, or like according to what he can give. It will mean that at least you'll be paid something like 10,000. But the truth is that you have to buy airtime, you have to buy data, you have to sleep in a house, you have to dress up well, you have to always change your clothes every day. You don't have to wear only one shirt. They'll say that, are you living in Uganda or you're living in some other place? So in this aspect, the person will remain in this state of development for 10 years. Are these organizations understanding that people have to progress is the question. If at all they can progress, then it's okay. The minimum wage is just to create a ground, but some companies can always look for a way of making these people here always grow or progress in the organization. It's just to set a ground, not to put a ceiling that this is the price that you should pay everyone. No, it's to help those who might not easily develop. And given this fact, let me talk about this, Leonard. I know you're going to jump to message. But no,
Okay,
Leonard,
go ahead.
I come to be employed, not because I want to just get money. I also want to get some money and also start up my thing. But if at all the job that I'm working in, I get the money that can just sustain me just within a month, and I can't get any extra saving to put up something that might one time help me and get some passive income, then it's no longer a job. It's just a survival for the fittest. And in that aspect, the minimum wage has to come to put a ground for us. Something like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rodney. Uh, okay, Joram wants to react to that. Joram, let's hear you.
The
Reporter
way
from
how LM, yes, the way how LM is raising his issue is that the way how he does his thing, he feels that some people should lose their liberty so that some other people can enjoy it. That is not the best option. How can I lose my liberty when actually how can I lose my economic freedom because of someone else? Freedom allow everyone to participate the way how he wants, provided he does not destroy the liberty of others. That is a principle. Unless you want to create violence in a society by saying that this one should get, the government should come to the other one and take it and give it to the poor. That is not the best way how to do things. People, me, LM, and Dennis should come on the table individually and agree without someone poking in our pocket, forcing us alone us to pay other people. Recently, I was arguing myself scientifically, asking myself, what if the company you are telling someone to pay someone highly does not exist? What if I don't establish that company? Where will you tell those people to get, I mean, to get those wages from? If I thought those company closes and go at home, what will happen? So it is necessary to always leave freedom to reign, leave people to use their ingenuity, freedom, and bargain for themselves based on the value they create in the society. Thank you very much.
Now, Joram, let me cut you there. So how do you think we can, as libertarians, now we've gotten the challenges, we've gotten the problems. Dennis, I'm coming to you. So how do you think we as libertarians can work alongside the government to make sure that we bring out the ideas that you are trying to say right now to the government? Do you think we can get there anytime soon?
No, the role of government are the two major roles: to protect the individual and the liberty of the individual, then to protect his legally acquired properties. Those are the only role of government. Provided the law gives a a clear law, people will progress. The society, actually today, the government intervention in people's dealing and business is less than 30%. We are here in this meeting, the government is not aware. People are doing very many transactions and the government is not aware. The government only come in to police and actually take what does not belong to it. There is nobody who has commanded the government. You know the idea of a pencil. The pencil has been produced.
Joram, don't let us digress too much. My question is straightforward. What do you think we can do right now to actually move this problem and solve it? Are we saying government should leave completely, or are we saying if we have different minimum wage for different sector, it will ease the pain? We cannot remove the pain right now, but we can ease the pain by our suggestions. So what do you suggest? Having different minimum wage for different sector, or what?
My concern is we don't need minimum sector because we need to leave people determine their own destiny without government intervention. That's what my stand is.
Thank you very much, Joram. I got you on that. Now, Mr. Dennis, let's hear your own opinion. What do you think we should do? Should we propose different minimum wage in different sector of the economy, or we go with the anarcho-capitalist, we don't want minimum wage. What do you suggest?
All right. Thank you, Leon. This is very interesting. One, I think that inequality is not the same as poverty, and we can really there's something I was trying to put down here. I don't know if I got it right. I was just trying to I read it from some book. Uh, first, inequality is not the same as poverty, and populations can be equal but poor, or unequal but rich. So setting the same minimum wage for everybody uh, will not make everybody prosperous. Setting I want to go with what Elaine was saying. I want to go with your question of having different minimum wage for different societies, because one, uh, if I get paid for my productivity, what Elaine was, I don't know if Elaine was trying to refute that. If I get paid for my productivity, then it will be up to me to up my game. It will be up to me uh, to find better ways and better ways of earning and to have more input to my work. But if I have a silver lining, uh, if I have minimum wage, no matter how much I work, no matter how less I work, we'll still get the same pay. Then there is no big economic progress there, because look, we'll still be working the same, still be putting in the same energy, but still getting the same earning. So
So
different society.
which one do you want us to pick? Different minimum wage in different sector.
Yes, different minimum wage in different sectors, because one, it steers up competition, and this is a competition we're trying to speak about here, value for value. We're trying to speak about you bringing something to me that I want most, and you also coming for something that you want most. So
Awesome. On
I
that
want
note,
to,
let me stop you there. It will bring about
yeah.
competition. People will move from one sector to the other because the minimum wage is high. But they don't. LM is already thinking there will be a disadvantage at that point. So LM, let me come to you. What do you think will be the disadvantage of creating that competition? Wouldn't some sector actually suffer? Because let's use Uganda, for example. Most students now are running away from the art department. They are moving to the science because science is making more money. So, what do you think?
Uh, Thank you very much, Leonard. I still want to put it on the basis of what you had asked these other friends of mine, that what should the government do, and what I would say first is that governments have to make research, and they have researchers, they have political analysts, they have they have researchers, who can come up and decide to study all these different sectors and how they are affected, how resilient they are in times of pandemics or endemics, in times of stability and all that. So understanding their profit margins within these ranges will determine how they can manage the minimum wage itself. They have to study at what time are these organizations always progressive. Do they give their employees time to progress? Do they really? Because like if at all I came and I was paid at 75,000, maybe in my first time, and if until next year I'm still being paid that amount of money, and it can't sustain me in Kampala, then these are the people whom we should now understand how we can help them. This is not set just to help the government. I know Joram is always against the government, but the government is a representation, or is a reflection of the people. Just as the John Locke says that the parliament has to represent people. That's why the constitution itself puts people at the first to be
Rodney,
sovereign.
Rodney, Rodney, let me stop you there. So,
Yes.
Durham says no minimum wage. Dennis says we should, as much as possible, to implement different minimum wages in different sectors.
Yes.
So we have two options now. So
Yes.
which of the two options are you going for, or you are going for another option entirely?
That's why I was saying, Leona, that much as I agree with Dennis, the minimum wage has to be set differently for different sectors, but it has to be done with prior research. You know, the government itself.
Let me hold you there. So
Yes.
the nothing is Dennis and Rodney says we should have different minimum wage in different sector of the economy. Mr. Joram is saying we shouldn't have minimum wage at all. All right, our viewers, you see the comment section below. Why don't you just put your own comments there, and we'll come back with this set of wonderful people next time to discuss more. Because you see, this topic is so wide, and we want to try as much as possible to make sure that we dig deep into it. You see, we try as much as possible to discuss libertarian topics that is affect African and Africa as a whole, and looking at the Western scenarios and every other scenarios, and see how what we can emulate, what we can turn away. So why don't you stay tuned, because we are going to be having weekly presentations dropping here, weekly arguments. And the truth of the matter is our panels are not always going to be accepting each other's opinion. That's what we call the panel discussion. So we need you to go into that box, and you know what? Give your comments, and we will surely put it into consideration in our next discussion. Thank you very much, guys, for being here tonight. Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Joram. You guys, you know, the next thing coming up your way will be price ceiling. Price ceiling. What does price ceiling means? Oh, we have wonderful people that are ready to dissect what price ceiling means and how it affects the economy. Until then, ciao.